A very good evening. Welcome to Advancing Northeast, and this is Joyshri Padgiri from the outreach team of Advancing Northeast. We are delighted to have you here. And before we introduce our speaker here and move forward with our session, I'd like to brief a little about Advancing Northeast for our audience who do not know about our initiative yet. So, Advancing Northeast is a digital initiative of the Northeastern Council, Ministry of Development of Northeastern Region, Government of India, and Northeast Development Finance Corporation, NEDFI. So, it is a one-stop solution portal specially tailor-made for the youths of Northeast in the field of education, employment, and entrepreneurship. And I think this is the first ever initiative which has been taken, specially curated, specially as in information hotbox for the youths of Northeast India. And to serve this very aim further for our education segment, education, employment, entrepreneurship, we have this very career talk shows where we host different professionals from different areas of interest so that we can connect them to our youths of Northeast. And so today's episode is a little special because it's a career talk episode, but it's a study abroad and work abroad episode. So for the ones who actually, want to fly high and go out and explore the world and everything. So for you all, we have our speaker, Miss Asfa Sabrin Borbora. She is from Assam. Hello. And she is a PhD scholar at the Center for Integrative Genomics, University of Lausanne. So welcome, Asfa. Why don't we start with a little introduction of you in your own words for our audience, please?
So I'm Asfa. I'm working with Professor Richard Benton at the University of Lausanne, and I'm working generally in neuroscience and evolution of neural circuits. I did my bachelor's at Tejpur University, and then I did my master's in TIFR Mumbai, and now I'm here. So just briefly, yeah.
Okay. So Asfa, where did you did your schooling from? And then graduation, post-graduation, what were your subjects?
Schooling. So I did most of my education in Assam till Tejpur University. So I'm from Jorhat, and I went to Don Bosco, Solberg, the regular schools over there. And then I went to Tejpur University, and I did my bachelor's in bioscience and bioinformatics. And that was, so I was enrolled in a integrated master's course, which has an option for you to take a lateral exit after your bachelor's. So following that, I did that. So right after my bachelor's, I wrote a bunch of exams, and finally I decided to go to TIFR just for a research course, because so the course that I was enrolled in was a 3-year full-time research course, and basically you get hands-on training on how to do research. So that was my trajectory.
That is your trajectory. Okay. So your schooling, you said you did from Don Bosco. Did your schooling have any kind of impact on your, choice of your subject area? Like you chose bioscience and bioinformatics. What was the reason behind it? Yeah.
I think it's sort of hard to say at that age that students have a proclivity towards, research or something like that. Yes. I know many people do. I did not. I was quite I was open to things. I knew that I liked science, and the only data point I have for this is because I was bad at memorizing. So I was like, science is cool, you don't have to memorize a lot. And that's just how I went from there. I'll be honest, I did not have I'll do research in the future or something like this. You take it a step at a time. At that time, I was just like, okay, so I'll do science now in my 11th and 12th. And then I went to Solbrook, which was, if any of you know about that school, it's kind of like every kid in Upper Assam who scores a little bit higher on their HSLC decides to go to Solbrook, and it was full of really good, brilliant students from all over Assam, and the competition there was like really high, and there we were all sort of pushed into medical or engineering. Like we had
Okay.
some special classes for students who wanted to go for medical or engineering. And at that age, you kind of buy into this idea, almost like your parents, everybody will tell you that you have to choose either one. These are your options. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Once you do science. And I kind of bought into that idea for a while. I wrote medical exams, which I did not qualify for. But while you do this preparation, you also like have to basically learn the class 11th and 12th syllabus, like
Syllabus.
from cover to cover. And biology was of course one of the, like you really have to be good at biology. So that's kind of how I went after that. It pushed me in my class 11th and 12th. They kind of pushed us to sort of select if you're a physics person or if you're like a biology person. And I think that was the only push. But I think at every stage, like right at the end of your tenure in your bachelor's or your high school or something, towards the end, you kind of sit down and decide, this is, of these two branches, I'm taking this branch.
Mhm. Okay. Interesting story. I think most of the students can relate to it because we all are so clueless right now. Everybody just needs for that, one point of connection that, okay, if
Yeah,
these people can do it, we can also maybe do it and, sort out our career
yeah,
and everything. So can you,
yeah,
so after that, you got admitted into the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Bombay, and it's also a very
yeah.
reputed institute. So can you break down the process of securing a seat there?
Yes. So TIFR, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, recruits through this exam called JG Bills, JGEEBILS,
Okay.
which you have to basically write. And like just in my final semester of my bachelor's, I was writing a bunch of these entrances for different colleges in India. I wasn't applying abroad at this time, or I didn't think that at this time this was possible. I'm sure many people relate to this. And so I wrote JNU CEE, which is like the exam for all of the biotechnology candidates in central universities in India. So, and I think I just recruit from JNU CEE. Then I wrote IIT JAM, which is for the masters in all of the IITs and IIScs. And then I wrote JG Bills, which
Okay.
is for the schools in the TIFR network. So that's TIFR Bombay. There is NCBS Bangalore, which is the TIFR, which is also in the TIFR umbrella. Then there is TCIS Hyderabad. There are also these schools for students who are going for physics, maths, which are also in the TIFR network. I'm not very familiar with them, but these three are the centers for the biology students. And then there's also other schools who get access to your JG Bill score and invite you for
Mhm.
interviews if they think
Emotion.
it's good enough. So, for example, NBCR, National Brain Research Center in Bhopal, takes like invites you from your JG Bill score, which is not ranked. So once the score is released, you will not be able to see where you rank, and then you apply through this. But you need, so the universities which are in this network directly have access to your scores, and they can basically say you qualify for this interview, and then you can come and do this. ICERs also recruit, I think, from JG Bills. But so essentially, once you write the exam, they have the scores and they will send you a interview uh, request. I think that the process in TIFR has changed a little bit right now. They also take the prospective students like from the top of the list and ask them to talk about a research problem that they would be interested in. And this is important, but it's not pivotal to your uh, application.
Mhm.
They want to see if you are basically keeping up with the science, or even if you're not keeping up, that you are in touch with whatever is going on in the field of research. How are you phrasing a problem, how are you phrasing a research question, and how you just roughly how you plan to sort of do it, even if the things that you suggest are not plausible. Uh, in terms of like doing the experiments, like you can say, I'm going to sequence all of these things. Maybe the institute that you're looking at does not have the funds to sequence everything because these are expensive things, right? Even if that is the case, what they want to see from your research proposal, at least at that stage, like right after bachelor's, is that you're thinking in the correct way. Like you have read some of the papers, you know what kind of experiments people do to solve this problem, or essentially it's an exercise in reading and logic, like reasoning out things. So then they invite you for an interview, and the interview process is I mean, I would say I can't tell you exactly what they ask in these interviews. What I can roughly say is that the questions that they will ask are going to be based on logic. Like you cannot study for it. If you know your bachelor's, like subjects, the basics, the molecular biology, the cell biology, if you know these subjects and roughly what kind of experiments people can do to find out certain things, you will be fine. They will ask you things like, oh, you know, like imagine you saw this protein at this particular in this particular organism, and then you want to put this protein into this different organism. How would you go about this? So and the answers also don't have to be correct. Like whatever you're saying does not have to be correct. It just you just have to basically reason out a way in which you can do this. When you do research, ultimately you will be suggesting a lot of things to your supervisor or to your lab, and people will shoot it down because it seems reasonable or it doesn't seem reasonable, or sorry, if it doesn't seem reasonable or if it is not plausible to do, or um, various other reasons. So it's not like you need to tell them the exact experiment which will do this. They just want to see that you are able to reason out a way to solve this problem. So, and after that, there were two interview stages. And then after that, basically you have to meet the PIs who are already there. You have to give them a list, like I think of 3 PIs who you might possibly like to work with. And then you go and meet those PIs, have a discussion one-on-one. And they will basically, you are assessing whether they are a good fit for you. They're assessing whether you are a good fit for the lab. So in this stage, there is a little bit of a personality test, which means that would you be a good fit for the lab with the other people who are there. And different labs have different cultures. Some of them want you to be like a team player. Some of them want you to be super hardworking. But it's a thing for you and your PI to like mutually decide whether this is a good fit for you. And then after that, I think they give you a call saying that this lab wants you to be um, uh, a master student there, and then you have to basically accept. I think they give you a deadline to accept it. So if you have other offers, you can decide, but that's roughly the process.
Okay. Lots of information and beautifully explained. I'm sure the students will be really benefited from it, because usually when you research and look for things, too much information leads to confusion. So when somebody breaks down the
Yes.
process this way, who has personally experienced it, then it becomes easier for them. So as
And
for
the
how,
entrance
yes.
landscape, sorry,
Hmm.
I was just saying the
Continue,
entrance
continue. No,
landscape,
yes.
like at that time is very complicated. I
Very
did not
complicated.
fully understand the way that JG Bills works. Even after I got like the acceptance, I was just like, okay, so but where can I see my JG Bills rank? And then later on,
Hmm.
I found out that they just don't release it. And different universities, like different clusters of universities, will have their own rules. It's a nightmare to figure out. But I think the best advice is, of course, this is an information forum. It did not exist when I was navigating all of this. Uh, Another thing that you can do is you can ask your seniors about what all they did. The list of exams that I had to write, considering the program that I was in bachelor's, was basically created by the seniors. Like they'll tell us, I'm writing these exams. You should write it next year, and you have to
Okay.
you may have to go seek out that information from them, but you definitely should like just talk to your seniors, figure this. They're the best source of like condensed information for this.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So after this, after Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, how did you pick the university you are currently in right now? Like, were you always aware about this institute and about the program it has?
So no, definitely not. I think in TFR, one of the things that happened there is, which I guess happens in the so-called premier institutes of India, is that most students after their graduate, if there's a master's program, would like to go abroad. And so there is this, you know, uh, culture of keeping up with what universities abroad or like labs abroad are doing in your field, okay, and to pick people that you would possibly like to apply to. This process happens like throughout your masters. So we would have seminars and journal clubs which discuss certain types of papers, and you know that that lab works in a field that is interesting to me or that is related to my field, or I would like to switch to that. So when the time comes, like in the final year, essentially you will be up. So for Europe and the US, there are different kinds of ways to apply to labs. The in many places you have to apply to the university directly, and if the university selects you, then you can go to the lab, similar to what happens in India, what happened in TFR. And in many universities it's like you just talk to the PI directly. They have their own grants in which they can hire you, and then you go from there. And in many of them, there's like a hybrid of both of them. So sometimes you will, which is always recommended, that you apply to a university, then you personally write to the PIs of the labs that you would like to go to. PI is the head, like the
Mhm.
researcher of the lab.
Supervisor.
So
Yeah.
supervisor, exactly.
Mhm.
So and it is always recommended that you read their papers, and in your email you write like a short email about I've applied to this university, I'm really interested in your lab, I read these papers, I think this thing would be good to look at. This does not have to be a
Mhm.
full research proposal. I mean, it should
Okay.
not be a full research proposal. You will not even have the time to write a full research proposal to all of the labs that you will be applying to, but you should, to show interest, like to show genuine interest, what you need to do is you need to basically give them that give them show them that you have read their papers and this is something that you would be interested in pursuing. And if they are also interested in this, they will write back to you, and then you know and you can always gain, like you can always find out from them what you should do next. Like people are generally quite helpful or quite willing to divulge this information. But after your master's, basically, if you want to secure a PhD abroad, the first thing is you make like an Excel sheet of all of the labs that you want to go to, and with their email ID, you write to each of them, tell them something about their lab that you would really like to work in, and then it goes from there. So that's what I did for my PhD. I wrote to Richard directly, and he was hiring. So there's also this website called Jobs Academia, where people list the open positions in their labs in their institutes. So that's where I found the fact that Richard is looking for a PhD student, and I wrote directly to him. After that, we had to, you know, he basically asked me to flesh out this idea that I wrote to him in the email, that I would be interested in doing this. So I had to write a little write up, and after that we did a Zoom interview, and then I also did a little seminar for the rest of the lab about the work that I had already done in my master's, and then we went from there. It was and the questions they ask you at this stage, like before going to your PhD, will never be like name the cycles, name the compounds in the Krebs cycle or something like this. Like they will be asking things about your field, about the things
Mhm.
that you have done and what you plan to do. And they don't expect you to know everything. They just expect you to have a little bit of an idea about what you would like to do afterwards. And this is the case for almost all the um, accounts that I've heard of interviews for all of my friends who have sort of gone abroad, come abroad.
Okay, so that's really comforting to know. And also, I think half of the problems will anyway be solved if the students learn how to write a proper email and start mailing.
Yes,
Yeah, that
yes,
is the most
definitely.
important point, because
Yes,
they do not really do it because they think that they won't get a reply back, but then it happens.
definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly.
So yes,
I
this is a
think
very
because I
important.
went to TIFR, the people there were, I saw that my seniors and my batchmates would already like to do this. So there it became like a reasonable thing for me to do. Like everybody is doing it, I should also do this. But I remember when I was in my bachelor's, like a few of my friends just did not like even write these exams. I was not going to write the JG Bills exam because I thought that, there was a little problem with my admit card. And then I was like, who cares? Like, I'm not never gonna get in. I'm just not gonna write this exam. Like, forget about it. Let me focus on my like semester end exams. And then at the last moment, they sent me the admit card, and I was like, okay, great. I'll just go for this exam.
Hmm.
I know that many people just skip out on many of these things just because they just think that it won't matter. Like, I will not
Yeah,
get in anyway. So what's the point?
exactly. Next thing we would like to know is that what are the, if we talk about your university now, University of Lausanne, so are there any scholarship opportunities available over there? Did you look for any such opportunities as such?
So this is the case for all universities in India, I think,
Mhm.
and also most universities abroad, except a few countries. I think maybe Japan does not offer you a scholarship, but when you're doing your PhD, it's like a job, and they will give you a salary to be able to do this. So don't worry about um, uh, about whether about like having a scholarship. What I'm saying is that you need to talk to a PI who is willing to host you. They will tell you that these are the opportunities that these are the grants that we can apply to. If he doesn't already have, if they don't already have a grant, they will tell you that these are the grants that you can apply to. These are the grants that are relevant to our work. So there will be grants for, say, Drosophila research, or there will be grants for neuroscience research, or here there are these Swiss national grants, which this is not possible for a student to like know or keep track of. So
Mhm.
when you apply to a university, when you apply to a person, when you write to a person, they will tell you that these are the grants that you can apply, or your research proposal seems interesting to me. We have to apply for this grant. If you get the grant, I'll hire you, and it goes from there. So for me, Richard already had the grants to like hire a PhD student, which is why the job was listed. And uh, but for some of my friends, they have written to profs and they applied for a grant, they got the grant, and that's how they got in. But your first point of contact is the PI. Like, they will tell you
Yeah.
the grants that you need to look at, and it's almost always paid. In fact, I think in many universities in the US, they will also give you like relocation grants. So your flights, your first month before you like get your first salary, uh, your the houses that you have to get, a little bit of some other under the discretionary spending, you will get all of those things, uh, and those things will be taken care of. So
Mhm.
it's fairly easy, but after that, but the hard part is really
The
getting
initial.
somebody, yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
to like you and who you like also.
Mhm. Okay, so the financial aspect is also taken care of. It's basically like you are studying as well
Yeah.
as you are working there.
Yes, 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 yeah.
Okay, okay, perfect. So, moving forward, we'd like to know a
But
little about. Yes.
sorry, I just have to add something. This was also the case at TIFR, by the way. So
Mhm.
there are several master's programs in ICERS in TIFR,
Mhm.
which are giving you a full-time salary. So it's not too much. Like, you can't live an extravagant life at TIFR, but you don't have to take money from your parents. Basically, it's also like a job and studies.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. There are several master's programs which give you the money to be able to do it. So I spent no money basically when I was in TFR. I did not, they gave me money.
Okay, so it was like a scholarship then.
You can say that, yes. Let's say that, yes.
Okay, okay. That is a really nice thing then, because Northeastern students, if we talk about the context of Northeast, then the main problem, the main backdrop that comes is the financial part. So if
Yeah.
that they get access to the information regarding that, then they can surely find a
Mm-hmm.
way.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that if you are doing research at any stage, you should get paid because really you are basically doing the science, right? This
Mhm.
is not somebody teaching you to do things. You are
Mhm.
figuring out how to do things. Of course, people advise you. And at any stage during, I think Teshwar University also gives you some scholarship during your master's, but I'm not sure about this. I did not
Yeah,
know.
that is a
I did not.
caste specific thing. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay, okay, okay.
Mm.
So, but what I'm saying is that of all of these, because TFR had a full-time research program, they give you enough to basically sustain yourself. I think IIC also does. I know that ICERs do. It's not too much, but everybody gives you some.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like
If you go for
it's
the
not like
research
bachelor's.
part, yes, yes. If you go for the
Yeah,
research part, then they
exactly.
do. Teachpo University also does that. Yeah, they have a stipend. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for the
Yes,
PhD scholars. Yeah,
for PhD scholars for sure, but
yeah.
maybe for master, I'm not sure
That
about
I'm
this.
not aware
Don't.
of. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. So,
okay.
moving forward now, a little about the project you are working on right now.
Okay. So I'm working on Drosophila olfaction. So Drosophila is a fly, the common fruit fly, and olfaction is the sense of smell. So basically, what I'm trying to do is to see how flies adapt to their environments. So think about a fly that is in the fruit market, and then think about a fly who is in the desert. Like their environment, which has a lot of different smells, ambient smells, so it's going to be very different, right? And whether you go to whether you lay your eggs or feed on a cactus, or whether you go and feed on an apple, is going to they're navigating with their sense of smell a lot. So what I'm trying to look at is that how do these neurons who are sensing all of these different uh, odors in the environment, how do they evolve in different places? How do these flies specialize on a particular thing?
Okay, pretty
Yeah, I
interesting
hope that made
topic.
sense.
No, it did, it did,
Okay.
and sounded very interesting. Like you would really want to know the anatomy and everything. Very interesting.
Yes.
So, how has it been there? How has been your experience over there? How has been the educational scenario? How different it is from India or and Assam Northeast as such?
Mm, I'm I can't I don't know what it is like in Northeast, because but I can tell you about India, because just
Mm.
comparing my experience to TIFR and here, TIFR had a very good like research program. Like you really learn a lot during your masters. You're basically doing kind of a mini PhD for 3 years. That's how certain people call it also at TIFR. And the coursework was very minimal during our masters. Also, we were basically doing one class per day for about the first 6 months, and the rest was just research. And that was the same for the PhD students there also. We were basically having the same classes. Here we have opt-in classes, but you're also doing full-time research. And I how your experience is going to be is like very dependent on your university and your lab. My lab is really nice because I mean I like the work, I like my boss, and also it's like full of postdoctoral candidates who are already experts in the field. So all of the little like first year PhD student troubles that I face, there's already somebody in the lab who can help solve these problems for me. And there is another thing of the general structures of like having lab meetings, having journal clubs were very similar to TFR. But I'm not sure that's the case in many universities in India, because TFR is kind of modeled like the universities abroad, like they
Abroad.
try to give you, yeah, similar like avenues to learn and do research. I'm not sure how it is in different universities, but here the one of the better things is that you have access to a lot of like facilities which will in-house do certain experiments for you, which you don't have to send
Mhm.
somewhere. You have to wait for a few months to get things back. Of course, there are certain experiments that take time, but there's an in-house sequencing facility where you can just go and sequence things, stuff like this. So that's definitely uh, better. You get things faster, like the reagents that you need for your experiments. And it may seem trivial, but the amount of delays that it introduces into your life as a PhD student, when every little thing that you want to get
Mm.
takes 2-3 months, uh, and then you have to standardize, then you have to do experiments with it. It really helps improve things over here. So just the access to resources and cost of transportation, things definitely makes a big impact in your
Yeah, how
research,
fast
basically.
your research goes and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, what are your working hours over there?
So people here have great work-life balance. This is across Europe, and like people have their families, they get married in the middle of their PhD and stuff like that. I take weekends off as a rule. Sometimes I need to come in and do things, but generally I come in at like 9:30, and I can leave by like 5-6, and that's the general rule. Sometimes, of course, if your experiment needs you to be there for longer, you have to be. um, but I feel satisfied with the amount of time that I'm spending at work and outside work.
Okay. So, there is a pretty good balance happening,
Yeah, yeah,
even
yeah.
though a researcher's life is really very, no, difficult
Yes.
still
But it's
and
kind of what
maintain.
I said, right? If there are resources and facilities which make your
Yeah.
work easier and faster, you
Mm.
don't have to do so much and so much backbreaking work. And
Mm.
it also depends on the lab. Like some labs, people stay in for much longer, and
Mhm.
also the kind of work that you're doing. Sometimes you need to be there at night. You have to do
Mm.
a
Mhm.
measurement over there. But for me, like I try to sort of keep it
Mm.
humane for
Mhm.
myself,
Yeah. And to keep your
and also my lab
sanity.
allows it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another good thing. Um, so, next thing, sorry, I lost the question.
No, 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 it's okay.
No, I was about to ask, oh, yeah, a very basic question. How was your application of visa process and everything? Was it tiresome? That is also a really
I did it.
complicated thing, for the people outside who
Yes, yes,
haven't
yes.
done it yet. Yeah.
I did it during the pandemic. So
Okay.
it took longer.
Okay.
It was like in the middle of the second wave. But essentially my administrative people here at my department helped me out with it. So to come to Switzerland, you need an authorization from the Swiss government to let you go. With that letter and with all of the other uh, basically degrees, your what do you need? Generally degrees. They have a
Okay.
list of the documents that they need
Mhm.
from you. And then what you need to is you need to go to the embassy, which is in Delhi, the Swiss embassy. This is not the case for most European or US applications. Like generally, it can be done through this thing called VFS, the Visa Facilitation Services, which are present in many cities all over India. But for Swiss visas, you need to specifically go to the embassy, which is in Delhi. But because I was applying just in the middle of the pandemic, I was allowed to sort of mail them my documents, and there was no like external interview, because I had already received the authorization, which was done over here, like the administrative people here, applied for the authorization on my behalf, sent me the document. After that, I sent my degrees and documents for them to verify, and then they basically gave me my passport back. And it was not super hard. It was just very time consuming. Like all of the processes were slower. It took 2-3 months rather than whatever the standard 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, all right. So I think we have almost covered everything we wanted to know. You have beautifully, put down everything from E to Z. And lastly, any words of advice for the aspiring youths who are really enthusiastic about studying and working abroad? Like there are kids who are like, I want to go there, I want to go to Switzerland, I want to go to this. So any words of advice for them?
I would say try to get some research experience when you're in India. That makes you a better candidate. And the second thing is directly write to PIs, which I already mentioned. And I guess a general advice is apply, like do the thing. If you don't get it, it's fine. Like it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to say that there are opportunities for everybody who is aspiring to even do a PhD anywhere in the world. But if you have a good enough profile, like you worked during your masters, you have some research experience, and uh, uh, and you really like a person of a field, there are lots of Indian people here. There are lots of people from all over the world, basically. And it's not that you are disadvantaged because you are disadvantaged. It's true that we face a lot of disadvantages when doing all of this, but basically take care of your basics, you have some research experience, and definitely like organize all of the information you need and start applying. Like don't not apply because of the fact that it may not work out.
Yeah.
That would be my general advice.
Yeah. Wonderful advice and parting words, because we have put down everything very easily and in a very structured way. So thank you so much, Asfa. It was wonderful having you. I learned a lot of things. I got to know a lot of things, and I'm sure everybody watching would learn a lot more. So thank you. Hope to have more such collaborations in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to answer any specific questions if you would like in the future. And
yes,
thanks for having me.
Sure. Our audience could also connect with our host. They can ask us, and then we'll help them connect and solve their queries. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you.
Okay.